All right, how much time do I have? I will release you before you get too hungry, I promise. Okay, so is this going to work? All right, let's go back to old school. So, forget the clicker. Make sure you are here for this talk before I move on. And my lawyers asked me to put this up, take 10 minutes, no, 10 seconds to read it. In a sense, what this is saying is, anything I say in the next 40, 50 minutes, you cannot hold me to it. Now that that's out of the way I've structured the next few minutes is, I'll give you a quick introduction about my background, what I'm about, so you can put what I'm saying in context. Then we'll go over a practical example of one of our teams taking a machine learning product from 0 to 1 and all the bumps that we got along the way. I'll focus on the ones that are specific to doing a machine learning product and skip on the parts that are just normal for any engineering 0 to 1. And the last part, based on multiple of such 0 to 1 journeys that we've taken over the last 5 years at our team, there's a framework that we're applying for anything we're doing within any new machine learning technique pillar. So I'll give you the framework on how to go from 0 to 10, and this is what we are using, and it's working well for us. So a little bit about me. Right now, I lead machine learning product pillars at Workday, which is both product management, engineering, all the components of it. The financials pillar and our internal Workday pillar, which is essentially we're helping our sales and marketing teams to leverage machine learning. So those two. And I've been with the ML team for the last 4 years. Workday's journey started 5 years ago, and I moved from a different team to this team. So I've done it for long enough now for me to know which traps most products are going to fall into. And before Workday, quickly, we built a 1.0 product for consumers, product designers at Adobe, which actually failed, but we tried. And back at Sun, I was in the Java team, a language that hopefully many of you still use and love. Forget the verbosity, but so that was a lot of fun my first few years. I'll give you a quick story to help you understand what helps me thrive. In March 2006, I used to do hiking. Some of my friends, they told me, hey, let's go up Mount Shasta. How many people are from the Bay Area? Raise your hand. Okay, so for those that are not from the area, it's a mountain nearby, about 14,000 feet. And I used to do hiking, so I said, okay, how different can it be? I'll go. And we went up Mount Shasta. For those that raised your hands, you're probably familiar with Mission Peak, which is about 2,000 feet. Mount Shasta is 7 times higher, 14,000 feet, for comparison. And I said, yeah, I hike, I'll go. I went, and I did not know what a crampon looked like. That's what it looks like. But they taught me how to put it on and all that. And I couldn't believe it, but I made it to the summit during that first trip. I was miserable. I had not trained. It took me forever to get to the summit, but I just kept going till I could, and till I reached the summit. I was there at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Any climbers in the audience? Okay. You know how stupid that is. Yes, I did not. I kept going 3 p.m. And for the rest of you, you're not supposed to be on a summit or at high altitude beyond ideally 10 a.m. And I kept going till 3. I don't know how I was too lucky to be alive, to put it simply. So it was painful, miserable, but I really enjoyed it. So I kept on doing it. And over the next 3 years, my friends climbed Shasta, Whitney, multiple times. And in about 3 years, one of my climbing buddies came up with the outrageous thought. He said, hey, I signed up for Denali. It's in 3 months. You want to come? I looked at him. Mount Denali, which is 20,000 feet, For people that were not born here, 6194, I still get stuck on the meters. And to put this in perspective, Mount Denali is the tallest peak base to height, base to summit on Earth. I'm not counting the mountains that rise from the sea, but above land. And yes, it is taller than Everest if you count base to summit. And the other thing about Denali is there is no Sherpas. There is no support. You have to be on your own with your crew, of course. You have to be self-sufficient. And hence, I looked at him, are you crazy? I told him, go ahead. I will watch and cheer from the bottom over here. And he went. He didn't summit, and he signed up again for the next year. That put a seed in my head that, hey, he's at the same level as I am when it comes to climbing. Why don't I give it a shot too? So I signed up for the next year, and I spent my entire next year training like there was no tomorrow. I was working also at that time, full time. And the training schedule is crazy. You have to do something 6 days every week, cardio, workout, and long hikes with backpacks, at least 2 days every week. 4 to 8 hours, depending on what you can manage, back to back, possibly at least 2 days. And as you go closer towards your trip, you kind of ratchet the intensity and how much you do. One thing I had in mind is, I want to do everything I can to build the skills and the stamina for me to have a good chance of at least having fun while I'm on the trip. Everything that was in my control, I wanted to do it well. Everything else that's out of control, you can't do anything anyways, right? The weather and how the mountain is, that particular expedition. I went in knowing I did my best. And during the expedition also, the way I approached it was, let me just break it down into, it's going to be 17 days. I'm taking it one day at a time. Every single day I would wake up and go, let me break it down into additional milestones. I'm taking it 1 hour at a time. That next stretch, that's all I'm targeting, that next stretch. Every hour, especially during the hardest days, and summit day was really bad. I would just say, let me just take the next 10 steps. That's all. I'm not thinking beyond that. And I did that, and I was standing on top of Mount Denali before I knew it. One of the proudest moments of my entire life. I could not believe I was there. I'm so serious. I was pinching myself. I could not believe I was there. You can probably see it on my face, but it was amazing. So if you give me audacious goals, I give you happy Madhura. Now let's get to the professional side a little bit. But one of the things that excites me, even on my professional side, is getting into the unknowns, doing something that we haven't tried yet, going into territories that are filled with bumps, uncertainties, and you don't know what's around the curve. I'll walk you through one of the most recent 0 to 1 journeys that our team went through, of the multiple ones over the last 5 years. And after that, we'll go into the framework that we apply now for doing anything 0 to 1. How many of you use Workday already? Okay, many of you. So you're aware of the company. For those that aren't, it's essentially a single cloud system where you have a bunch of applications that you can turn on. You get to pick and choose what functionality you want to turn on, that are built on top of one technology foundation and one platform. So it's very easy for us to not have to repeat the same platform elements. All these application teams just leverage it through APIs, and then it's on for you. So that's Workday. And the power of one is one of the things that's helping us grow really fast, because everything is sitting on top of one source of data, one source of security model. And imagine your finance system, your HR system. You're trying to decide next year's budget. you sit in your finance application, you kind of figure out, okay, this is the kind of money I have, this is the headcount gap I have, and now you can also transition into your HR system and say, all right, from the gap I have for headcount, are there people already in my company that actually match for the stuff that I'm looking for? So it's very seamless for you to do whatever you need to within your business based on whichever applications you choose. And it's one experience as far as the end user is concerned for anything you use within the Workday portfolio. And if you are not aware of the company's history, Anil Busri and Dave Duffield were the people who started Workday. And innovation has been in our DNA since day one. 2005, when they started, cloud was the new technology innovation. And for those of you, if you don't know, there was such a thing as on-premise back in the day. That's when Workday started. People would have their own data in their backyard or their server room where only their people had access to it and nobody else could have anything to do with it. So we had to go through the journey of convincing the market to kind of adopt this new trend for the software products that we were building, leveraging that trend. And Anil has been a visionary since the beginning. When the third AI cycle started and it started becoming apparent that, hey, this is real this time, we started investing in it. So it's been 5 years, and thankfully we've learned a lot and have gotten good at it. The machine learning teams, they're spread across San Francisco, Pleasanton. I'm in San Francisco. If you're from San Francisco, it's in Soma near the Embarcadero station. If you want to come visit, holler, I'll show you around. And Boulder, Colorado is another location. We're expanding the ML teams, and Dublin, Ireland. Now, on to the challenge. We were asked to build an ML product that scans the receipts and auto-populates the expense reports application. And we were asked to do it in 6 months. Let me give you a little bit of what that meant for the team. Anybody who's in a large organization will probably understand this very well. So 6 months is not much time with multiple cross-functional dependencies where you're starting from scratch, where you don't know whether you have the data for your ML products, you don't know whether there is a model, you don't know whether you'll be able to design a user interface with which your model results are consumable by end users. 6 months was a big feat. We all knew it was an aggressive timeline. And being the kind of people we are, most of my team is like me, we accepted the challenge. And the first thing we did was defined it very crisply. This is one of the most important pieces when you do anything 0 to 1. You have to define it very crisply. If you're aware of the SMART goals or the OKR principles, at least the 3 elements: be specific, be measurable, and be time bound. So we defined all the different pieces that we wanted to know whether we achieved it or not. So we said, we'll build an ML product that scans receipts with 80% accuracy, and it'll be delivered in both our private data centers and on AWS, our public cloud, by end of whatever time that was there. We defined the win. If some of you are wondering, OCR, why did you bother to build? It's been around for decades. One big reason and one secondary reason. If you look at the screen on the left side, most of the OCR algorithms are pointing towards or for wall of text kind of use cases, novels, books, just wall of text documents. The one we were targeting, which is that receipt on the right, if you look at it, there is the logo, there is the barcode, some random star signs. So there's a lot of crap on that document or artifact. And there are some vendors that focus on that particular kind of artifact, but from day one, remember what I said when we started, customers were very uncomfortable with having their stuff on the cloud with us in our data centers. So the kind of legal agreements we had with our customers, we still have with our customers, we've given them trust and transparency around their data since day one. That's in our DNA. So For us, using another vendor that has this algorithm potentially that might work is not even an option we wanted to consider, because that meant giving our data to somebody else which is not within our periphery, and they might break the trust that our customers have with us if we did that. So we didn't want to go that route. And the way we dealt with that first hurdle, the data bootstrap, is we created synthetic data sets using transferred learning. And we just threw over a bunch of text across various images, and then used a variety of text. So trying to mimic a generic receipt scenario, crumpled receipts, you might have coffee on your receipts, the fuzzy text, colors, fonts. So we kind of created a bunch of variety over there. And we tried it with that. It didn't give us enough of accuracy. So team got back together, said, okay, what else can we do? We're running out of time. We were within our first 2 months of that 6 month. Said, okay, why don't we run a receipt contest? Because I'm sure there is a lot of Workday people that have a lot of receipts sitting in their drawers, in their back pockets, their backpacks, that if we just ask them to donate them, we might get a good data set from realistic artifact perspective. We ran the receipt contest. Guess what the prize was? Any guesses?
No. Gift cards?
No. What did you say?
Ticket to the demo.
Oh, no, I wasn't submitting receipts. iPhone works every single time. I'm telling you, Apple products, if you use that as a prize, doesn't matter what it is, the fan effect is so strong, it always works. So we did the latest iPhone, and yes, we got a lot of receipts, thousands, I think 40,000 receipts. And when we trained with that, we actually were able to get to the accuracy we wanted. And there was another thing that we had to consider, the deep framework choice. Note here, your choice might be different than our choice. The way I would make my choice, yeah.
How did you label your receipt? You need a text version.
I am getting to it.
Image version.
Yes. I'm getting to it. So the framework choice, we had criteria for our own use case. If you're trying to make a call, come up with your criteria first, which is what we did. And then we tried out various leading options that we think we're going to do well. And based on whichever one did best for our requirements, we went with that. For us, MXNet was that choice. It gave us better performance than TensorFlow and all the other ones. The other thing is our team is a Scala house, so all of our code base, most of our code base is Scala. We have some Python, but MXNet had good integration with Scala packages. And the other big thing for us was, I don't want to use a library that I don't know if the startup goes belly up, whether it will be around for long longevity. So having enterprise level support and somebody who's been around, some guarantee, that was important for us. So we went with that. And let me describe the different phases of the ML pipeline. The first thing we did was just detect the bounding box on that artifact. And field of interest. We used a deep learning model based on residual networks, and the output for this particular microservice or the Lego block was center of the box, height, width, angle of tilt, confidence. So all the elements that we wanted to know about that bounding box. Second microservice or phase Lego block was, now that you have the bounding boxes, recognize the text in there, recognize what's inside. Again, we use deep learning models with residual networks, and the output was what's inside that box. Microservice, another Lego block. And the last phase was probably the most complicated, parsing or mapping. This was a combination of, we had some rule-based stuff, and we had deep learning ensemble with multiple layers, and the output from this last phase was a map of value to field for us to be able to auto-populate those expense report. And just to show you how that looked like, the blob that you see is essentially where all our documents are stored. It's a common service at Workday that everybody uses if you have high volumes of documents. That's where we all kind of put it. And we had an orchestrator that essentially orchestrated the whole ML pipeline. So got the image, we performed FOI, which is essentially bounding box detection or field of interest detection. And then we ran through the other two phases. And we wrote out our responses to Kafka, where all these various applications, whichever ones wanted to, could just consume. So we built it as ML as a service. And that's what the ensemble was, just multi-layered. To what you were asking earlier, so another piece that played a role in us, for us to be able to get to the accuracy and even to define the user experience, we have a core group of human-in-the-loop team in-house. Again, for a lot of data, we cannot use these vendors because of the trust thing that we have with our customers. So we have our own core team. Whichever data sets we can use extended, we extend it with these external vendors. But anything that's we don't want anybody else to touch and have under our control, our own human-in-the-loop team does it. And they played a role in the data labeling, data cleaning or grouping parts, and validation of results from your algorithms. So that part. They also played a role. I'll tell you one specific thing, especially if you're building products with a lot of cross-functional teams. For this data exploration and validating your model and user experience design, we have our own internal UI within the ML teams. There is a cross team that builds UI applications. We don't engage with them during this initial phase. So we cooked up the UI elements on top of our ML service to move fast and validated that is the user experience for what I'm surfacing is resonating with that end user, and is it solving a real pain? So we do that during that exploration and validation phase itself with our own UI resources. So you got proof of concept, data labeling, evaluation of results, and user experience validation. All that is done by our own internal team. The production architecture, this is moving into, once we build something 0 to 1, we figure out how do we now scale and how do we create a platform that can be leveraged by multiple ML services. On the right is the usual CI/CD deployment pieces. For us, we have to build microservices that deploy to the private data centers and also AWS. So all services have to worry about that. The ML platform or foundation piece is essentially engineering elements that are common across all of your ML services. So model versioning, model storage, data store, all of those common services. Monitoring, your whatever metric matter for your ML services. So all those common elements go within the ML platform layer. And the ML as a service is essentially all our microservices. I'm only showing you the microservices for the example I used, but all of them essentially sit in that layer. And we try to build them as Lego blocks so that we can kind of put pieces together as needed for newer and newer use cases where you're not trying to rebuild that whole thing again. So we try to break them up as much as possible into independent elements. And everything that you see outside of the ML as a service is all the other cross-functional teams that we surface our results to through APIs, and there is integration with other elements. So after 6 months, all of that happened in 6 months. Of the 6 months, 2 months was us figuring out data sets. So we managed to finish everything, including working with the cross teams to productize it and get it in customers' hands in 6 months. And the even better part of it that was we had a target of 80% accuracy, if you remember. In production, we are doing so much more better than 90% for everything that's running that we're monitoring. Very proud, very proud. And everybody is really happy with how good the product has been. Now that you saw what it looks like for something to go in real, I'll tell you about the framework that we are using to approach any particular ML stream. And at Workday, if you saw those applications, we're doing vision-related services, one example that I use. We're doing language and knowledge graph-related services. That's another pillar. And we're doing anomaly detection. So there is a variety, everything from the AI toolbox, we're essentially moving around and building out those streams. Because the use cases, industries is such varied, we get to play with all the toys. It's kind of fun. And yeah.
How big was the team to achieve that 6-month goal?
Small. And I'm going to touch on that.
One woman show?
Huh?
One woman show?
Not that small, but we had 5 people, I believe, including the leader. And I'll go into that because it's a good question and it's a very critical element, especially for the 0 to 1 portion. So imagine you're saying, I want to do anomaly detection, right, within your product. For the 0 to 1, start with S, which is select one win for that category. Only one. Do not do any more than one. Select one win. The specific piece here is be very precise about what that win, how that win is defined. So you saw that example of OCR earlier. A bad way to define that win would be build ML product to auto-populate expense reports. I don't know whether I succeeded or not. Right? It could be to 10% accuracy, and I could still claim victory. A better way to define it is call out all the specifics that you care about. So what kind of accuracy? Are you shipping it to all customers? Are you shipping it in all data centers? But all the elements that you care about, and even the time in which you're trying to get that win, spell it out. Spell everything out before you get going. Because we kind of change our world based on what we achieve. So if you want to avoid that trap, define your win first. Select only one win. And the T from the start is start with the team. And the most important piece of picking the right team is picking the right leader. Start with that before you get data scientists and anybody else in the picture. Pick that right leader. And the 2 elements that you're looking for when you're picking the leader that's going to see this through is go for an entrepreneur if you're a large company. People that have achieved 0 to 1 for some new technology area. It doesn't have to be ML. If they've done it for something that was a new trend in the past and have gone from 0 to 1, that also qualifies. So somebody who's done that before, who's battle-tested entrepreneur. And why I'm saying they don't have to do ML is the hype is still very high. The experienced talent is getting plucked up and is very expensive. So if you can afford it, go for that. But if you cannot, then you can still find somebody who's battle-tested in some other technology areas, which was new when they did 0 to 1. And the other key element, and this is even more important for ML, is you want to find someone who can speak both exec and tech. I cannot stress this enough. You need someone who can speak both. You don't want someone who's gonna go in a corner and say, don't disturb me, I'm doing my thing, and not communicate up and around to your stakeholders. That is not the kind of leader that's gonna help you succeed, just longer term, this overall function. So somebody who can speak both languages. So those are the 2 things I would say pay attention to when you pick the leader. In terms of team size, to your point, less than 1 pizza pie. So if I could, I would just do that leader, a data scientist, 1 is enough. If the leader has that product mind, then you don't need to add the product manager. If they don't, then add the product manager and 1 engineer. I would start very small. 4, start with 4. Smaller the team, less overhead you're gonna have, and they'll move really fast because they're small. So very small team, and give them a very aggressive time frame. Even if they push back, give them a very aggressive time frame. This is key also. You're trying to build the organizational capability to do ML products at scale. So faster you kind of make them go through 0 to 1, doesn't even matter whether you succeed or not. The point is, do that journey fast. Your goal is get the learnings. Your goal is not to get that first victory. Your goal is to get the learning from that first journey. So make sure it's an aggressive timeline. I would say if it's a startup, less than 3 months. And if it's a large organization, 6 months max. They'll scream, but hopefully if you pick the right leader, they won't scream. So that's the T in the start. This is another piece which I've seen from experience. We didn't do it in the beginning and we suffered a lot. But when you define the win and you define your game plan, articulate it to everybody in the company, every single person. Doesn't matter who it is. Tell the whole world around you, what is that win and what is your game plan to get to it. When I say game plan, I'm just talking about milestones, risk, mitigation, all that. And align all your stakeholders, whether they care about it or not. This is important. Whether they want to listen or not. Find them one by one. Get them, everybody should understand what this team is up to and what are they trying to achieve, what the plan is. And as they're going from 0 to 1, keep them aligned. They should come with you on that emotional roller coaster. That's the only way they'll kind of understand what it takes to do this. And they'll be willing to invest more or will be able to figure out how much they want to scale. So make sure you articulate and align your stakeholders along the way. Rally and support that team. And one of the things that you'll notice, if any of you are doing ML within the company, you might have noticed this. Any team that's doing ML, the whole company wants to talk to them. Okay? Everybody. Oh, I have this cool idea. Can we do blah, blah, blah? Protect. You are the person who's going to create that bubble around them and take away all the distraction. You cannot afford for them to not finish that 0 to 1 fast. And the interrupts, they're never going to stop. As long as the AI hype is there, they're never going to stop. So make sure you're rallying, supporting, and blocking. But the biggest piece is protect them from distractions. And T, take shortcuts. Encourage them to take shortcuts. This might seem counterintuitive, especially within a large company, but this is also a critical piece. Startups, I don't have to tell you, you will take shortcuts because your runway is going to run out. But for large companies also, operate as if you're a scrappy startup who has whatever 6 months, and if you don't get through that journey in 6 months, you're going to run out of funding. Make them think like that. Make them realize every single day, if they're not feeling like, oh my God, that tech debt pile is growing like crazy and I can't breathe. If they're not feeling like that, they're not taking enough shortcuts. So for this piece, make sure, encourage them to take shortcuts, because as engineers, we tend to want to do things right, but you'll have to kind of push them to take shortcuts. So to summarize, for that 0 to 1, start, select the first win, choose the right team. The leader is very critical. Pick the right person. Let them choose a small team, less than 1 pizza pie. Give them an aggressive timeline. Make sure you're keeping your stakeholders with you right from the beginning, where they understand every little bump and how your team got past it. Keep them along with you. Rally, support, and protect your team from distractions. And make sure they're taking shortcuts. So that's your 0 to 1. This is going to be the hardest piece from that 0 to 10, 0 to 1. And every single new ML area you're going in, use this framework to do that 0 to 1 before you expand. After that, you have a first win in the bag. Imagine the world. You have some credibility now in actually being able to build something. and you have brought your execs or stakeholders along the journey. Now, getting to 10 is easier because you have credibility, right? You did something that they see value in, gather more capital, so figure out how much more you want to invest in that particular pillar. I wouldn't go directly to 10. I would probably do 2 or 3 next within that pillar. So don't take on too much, go gradually, but get that more investment. The second piece is very critical because there will be churn on your team. People will leave. And if you don't do this, all that knowledge for 0 to 1, if you do not convert it into repeatable processes or somewhere have it, you're going to suffer. And I've lived through this. Again, ML hype is high, which means people are going to move around. And in general, if you look at the trend in the industry, everybody wants to do something different after doing something at a company, right? It's normal. Even if they like being there, they will change. Keep in mind, even if they like being in your team, they will move on. And you have to be prepared to kind of keep going by establishing the processes and platform. And transfer all the learnings from your 0 to 1. In conclusion, start and go get them at scale. Simple. Food time. Thank you.